Hello, my name is Michele Gonzalez. Today we will be discussing communicating effectively. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to understand how communication affects patient satisfaction, understand how your behavior speaks louder than your words, and understand how to improve your communication skills. Let us first define communication. Communication is a complex, ongoing, dynamic process in which participants simultaneously create shared meaning in an interaction. The goal of communication is to approach as closely as possible a common understanding of the message sent and the one received. Why is this important to nurses? Nurses are the face of healthcare. Communicating effectively influences patient satisfaction, and patient satisfaction is tied to reimbursements. There are two types of communication, verbal and nonverbal. Verbal includes all aspects of spoken language, words, grammar, style, and content, and nonverbal includes body language. Body language is more powerful than the words one speaks and can distort the meaning of the spoken words. Nonverbal communicates the message behind the message and what the person really means. Effective communication. Nurses communicate with patients, their families, coworkers, superiors, colleagues, subordinates, and other healthcare providers. Being able to communicate effectively is essential for nurses to become influential and become positive members of the healthcare team. Communication can be easily misunderstood. This is known as intra-sender conflict. When a verbal message is incongruent with a nonverbal message, the recipient has difficulty interpreting the intended meaning. For example, a nurse tells a patient, "If you have any questions or concerns regarding your medications, don't hesitate to ask. I'm here to listen." The patient approaches the nurse with a concern. The nurse continues to chart at the computer, sending the patient a conflicting message. Listening to body language. Body language is communicated by our facial expressions, our eyes, how we use our arms, hands, legs, feet, how we position our torso, and our posture. This enables us to understand others' moods, attitudes, and responses in addition to the words they are speaking. We can adjust our own words and actions accordingly. For example, a nurse is providing a patient with medication education. The nurse notices a blank look on the patient's face. The nurse should stop the education and ensure that the patient has understood the message, rather than continuing with the medication education. Listening to body language. Listening is demonstrated by smiling, making eye contact, arms spread open, hands open or touching the face, leaning forward. Not listening is demonstrated by a blank look, teeth clenched, arms crossed over the chest, hand over mouth, leaning back or tilted away. It is very important that the nurse's verbal and nonverbal messages are congruent. For example, as a nurse is leaving the room, she says to a patient, "Is there anything I can get you before I leave?" A better way to communicate this, using our body language, would be to stand at the patient's bedside, lean forward, smile, make eye contact, and ask the patient, "Is there anything I can get you before I leave?" Barriers to effective listening. Flagging energy defensiveness. Listening takes energy, having too much to do, being worried or tired. For example, a nurse is busy at the end of her shift and thinking ahead and multitasking. It's important for this nurse to stop at the patient's door, focus on the patient, clear their mind of all their other worries, and give their full attention to this patient. Habit. Thinking ahead during conversations. For example, a patient has a concern about a medication side effect. This is not a time for a nurse to multitask and think of the other things they need to do. This is a time to listen. When we are aware of our weaknesses, we can only improve our communication skills as nurses. Delivering your message. Poor delivery can undermine the best worded message. Using questions instead of statements makes you sound uncertain, and listeners are apt to feel the same. State your message clearly, directly, and with confidence. You are the respected healthcare professional. Let your style reflect that belief. For example, a nurse states to a patient, "It has been 4 hours since you last took a Norco. Do you think now is a good time for more Norco?" The nurse sounds uncertain. Rather, a better way to communicate this message would be for the nurse to say, "It has been 4 hours since you last took a Norco. I understand your pain is at an 8. You are now due for your Norco. My recommendation is taking another Norco at this time." Timing. Timing plays an important role in deciding what to say and how to say it. For example, a patient is in pain. Rather than speak to the patient regarding discharge planning, a better option might be to provide the patient with pain medication as well as alternative therapies and return to discuss discharge planning at a later time. Using interruptions. Interrupting is a communication strategy that can be used to support or to counteract and undermine. Affirming interruptions. I agree. For example, a patient is discussing medication educational information, such as the route of medication. As the patient states this, the nurse can interrupt by stating correct or that's right. This is supporting the patient. Undermining interruptions would be holding the floor and not allowing others to talk. This can lead to people feeling frustrated. Most importantly, we must appear to be empathetic to those in our care and communicate effectively as nurses. We are the face of nursing and the face of our facility to our patients and their visitors. Patients may not remember our names, but they will remember how we made them feel during this difficult time in their lives. By communicating effectively, we can improve the care patients receive and become better nurses. In summary, today you have learned effective communication involves listening to others' words and body language. You learned barriers to effective listening. You learned how to deliver your message with confidence. And you learned some communication strategies, including paying attention to timing and using interruptions.